Hello and welcome back. We should be ashamed of ourselves. Let's do this. But welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. My name is Samaria and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host.
Miosha?
And today we're reviewing Married at First Sight season 18, episodes 17, which was Decision Day, and
Mhm.
18. So we're going to put them all. We are a little bit delayed because we for reasons could not record last week. So here we are. And
Yep.
if you're interested in this season of the show and you haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and do that now. Give this
Mhm.
video a thumbs up
Mhm.
and meet us in the comments.
Yes.
So let's start with the people who actually made it to decision day for real. And then we can do Michelle and David and
Okay.
Allan and Madison. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get Juan and Carla out of the way.
Yeah. This season is so jumbled up because we have a new couple at Decision Day.
I was about to be like, we do, but yes, yes.
Okay. Carla and Juan. We can start there.
Hmm.
All right.
So
Uh
he calls his parents.
oh yeah, the FaceTime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing comes of that other than they tell him use your brain, which we've gotten that from Juan this whole time. He's very logical. He doesn't lead with his heart. And so
Hmm.
I guess it kind of makes sense that that's the advice that they would give him. But
I
we,
don't think his parents necessarily wanted this to work anyway. So it's not like it's not like they were about to put up a fight, like
you
they were
don't think
talking.
they liked Carla?
I just did not get the sense that they thought that she was it for him upon first impression.
Mm,
And so I
okay.
think they probably thought she was cool or whatever, but not for their
Hmm.
son. That's always the vibe I got from them. But of course, like we don't know these people. I
Hmm.
think it's just based on the questioning that Juan's father had for Carla in the
Oh
beginning,
yeah.
which I didn't think it was like I understood why he asked those questions. As a
Hmm.
parent, you want to make sure, but it just gave off a certain vibe.
Oh,
So,
okay. I didn't come to that conclusion. I just assumed that they didn't have much contact with her, and this
mhm.
process is crazy anyways. And
Yeah.
so I just got that they were indifferent, maybe, of like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
well, this sounds about right.
I
Okay.
think that could be it too. Yeah, it could be either one. I just think they know what their son's looking for, and based on the line of questioning they gathered, she's not about to be his work hog, and she shouldn't.
Mm-mm. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
Carla sits with, I believe it's her sisters.
Hmm.
And in that session, she says, "Oh, we're both tiptoeing." It seems as though there's this sense of like, oh, she doesn't like she knows where she stands, but she doesn't know because she knows I guess what she wants and is getting the sense that yeah, he's probably not able to do it, but he hasn't come right out, at least
Yeah.
to me, and said exactly why the romantic connection is missing. And we can get to this later, but from some of the other reviews and recaps, I've gotten the sense that people think that his lack of interest in her is because of her lack of ambition or her lack of plan or wanting to work. But I feel like Juan hasn't been very straightforward about he's just like, oh, the romantic connection's not there. To me, he hasn't been that straightforward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think on a season where so many other things have happened, he hasn't been forced to. Like I feel
They
like
haven't
nobody's
pushed.
really been worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't pushed on it. Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, I mean, they have the hot tub conversation, but nothing happens there. I
Mhm.
mean, this whole episode, Juan and Carla have been the same Juan and Carla they've been throughout the entire season, where there's not much to report on them. But
Mhm.
when they were getting to decision day, he said something about, her passive aggressiveness and the spirituality were a lot to get used to. And he said that she makes him feel financially insecure about the future.
Right. Yeah. And in that hot tub session, I think he said something or she said something about how she started questioning the reciprocity early on and how
After the
she's
honeymoon.
naturally a giver and obviously you want to receive. And so she was in this place of deciding like, oh, should I continue to give or should
Mhm.
I pull back? And to me, some of the stuff Juan was saying, I think from what he's looking for, to
Hmm.
me, Carla has the giving aspect to her. It's there. It just may not be all the way there if she's not being reciprocated.
And why should she give and give to him if like he's not giving to her? Okay, we had an interruption, but like we were saying, well, like I was saying, Carla should demand those things. Like nobody wants to be a giver if you're not also receiving. Like I think reciprocity is an important part in romantic relationships.
Mhm.
So yeah, as she should.
Yep, I agree. And then you want to jump to decision
Decision day.
day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's just do it. I mean, I think we all knew where this was going. I think the experts tried to show why they were a good match. Like Juan was saying, I want someone who's in the gym every day, and Dr. Pia goes, she's a Pilates instructor, and Pilates is hard. It is
It is,
not easy.
but it's not the gym. It's not the spirituality stuff. It's just
Yeah,
as she said, I think he's looking for the perfect fit for him, someone who is just as ambitious and into working out at the time that he's working out. He's looking for something very specific,
he's
I
looking for
think.
Juan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think the spirituality does play a role into it. Like I can get if you're not necessarily into that, someone talking about, oh, we need to cleanse this and we need to do that might not be
Mhm.
your thing. So I think that to me was one of the valid reasons that he's given. But yeah, I think one just needs to dig deep, or maybe not. Maybe he knows exactly what he wants, and then he just needs to find it. And this show was not a good match for him.
Yeah, I think this show requires you to be very open because
Open.
even in how you describe someone,
Hmm.
it could be totally different in how maybe the experts may interpret it. And
Yeah.
then let's not act like these people don't put on to get selected. Oh, they're so flexible, so open-minded, and then turns out you're very closed off. So,
And then you got to pull up the tape on them to be like, remember you had said. But
right.
okay. So then let's go to Tom and Camille so that we can have some joy. All right. So I guess they're still going back and forth about this issue of Tom not having a plan for the near future. And, it's making her feel not prioritized. And even though it seems like she's going to say yes on decision day, it is something that she's making abundantly clear to him. I want this figured out by decision day. Like that would
Before.
help. Hmm.
Yeah, because she said I guess part of her saying yes is contingent upon how confident she feels in him being serious about this plan.
Hmm.
His reaction is that, hey, I think we get to decision day and then we move forward. And I'll
Yeah.
say, to me, that makes sense. I haven't
Hmm.
gotten the vibe from Thomas that he's playing games or that he's not
No.
serious. He's still got those earrings in, girl. He's not taking them out. You know, beat this man up this way and that way. He got back injuries, hamstring injury.
And still ain't seen you in the lingerie.
And there was some questions about the reciprocity. He's a giver. So I guess in looking at the totality of it, I hear what she's saying, but I just haven't gotten the vibe that he's playing games or he's not serious. And to me, I would be like, Thomas, well, let me make sure that you're a strong yes too, because he said, like, even I still don't know what you're going to say. You want me to make a definite plan, but then you're still not a definite yes. Let's get to this day because it didn't sound as though they'd be out on the street and their leases would be up at the exact time of decision day. You still have a place to live and go back to. So yeah, I understood Thomas's point of view. Like, let's just get to decision day and then we can start making the plans. And from what we saw, he, I mean, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but he clearly was happy to make accommodations for her.
Hmm.
I will also add too, especially after the pandemic, I feel like it's not that easy for subletting and ending leases and all that type of stuff. So I could
Oh, I
see
don't know.
why he would be like, let me make sure this is a definite yes before we, I start reaching out to my leasing office saying XYZ, and you may not be a yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, but I can also see how if you're a planner and just like want to know what's coming next, how that could be not anxiety inducing, but maybe close to it. So like the dilemma they were having made sense to me, like it
mhm,
makes sense for him, like, okay, we'll make these decisions when we get there. It makes sense to me for her to be like, I want to know where I'm stepping next. So
mhm,
I don't know, with them throughout this entire season, I think their disagreements or the things that they've brought up have been
mhm.
pretty reasonable. Um, Maybe with the exception of the swag thing, because we felt like it went on longer as an audience. I don't know how long it was in their relationship, but yeah, they seem like the most normal couple to me.
Yeah.
So the things that they disagree about aren't catastrophic.
I will say I definitely understand Camille's point of view and not wanting all the planning to be on her. And I completely
Oh,
get that. Like you want to have
lost
someone
that.
who's acting as an adult within the relationship because it's a lot of pressure to plan out everything yourself. Uh, but I think it is a unique situation, and I could see both sides. Like, yeah, let's get to the
Mhm.
day before I start making concrete plans. And I'm a planner, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if it were me personally, I would probably feel away. But at the same time, if I don't know what your answer is going to be, even I'm not planning until I hear a yes from you as to what this living situation is going to be.
Just to be safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go back to my house. I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
giving up my apartment or anything crazy. No. So.
So when they were asking them, what do you like about the other person? She said, I love that he's not too cool, like he doesn't lead with his ego. And I like that about him too, like how just flexible he is. And it's been fun to watch. And then he said she's a very loving person. She's strong
Mhm,
and protective and makes him believe in himself. And I thought that was beautiful. Um, yeah. Then she mentioned that she doesn't always want to be the one figuring out the next thing, which you alluded to just now. And as a parentified child, I could see that.
mhm,
Yeah. And they talked about the concerns about him being in a 9-year relationship and having it fizzle out. And so, yeah, they addressed all of those concerns with the experts.
mhm,
And then when it was time to give their decision, they both said yes to each other. Tom came with a basketball that
mhm.
said, let's stay married. He was on
Very.
his Al Green. Let's stay
Mhm.
together. Yeah,
Very
I thought it
cute.
was cute.
Yeah, very thoughtful. Camille, of course, is being dramatic, trying to act like she wasn't going to say yes, girl. We
You
know.
you didn't watch this season, but one of like I think the best couples in MAFS history, Amani and Woody, she did the same thing to him,
Mhm.
like where she was like playing. I think she actually said no, and then she was like, I'm just playing. But yeah, so if that is any indication of what Tom and Camille are gonna be, hopefully it's a good and I mean, hopefully they'll be fine and last a long time. But yeah.
One thing I did right about Camille, I know that she said that in order for her to be more vulnerable, she needs to see from him, him kind of stepping up, taking the
Hmm.
lead, taking charge. I said, I think both people are going to have to move on this at the same time
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because as much as you say like, "Oh, I want you to take the lead. I want you to take charge." When people are used to being in control and planning everything, it could
Yes.
also be hard for you to relinquish that. And
She
so it's
has
like
to
you
make
have
a conscious effort. Hmm.
yeah, so Camille, you have to make effort at the same time to be okay if he doesn't plan it exactly how you would have done it. Not to say that he should, do a horrible job, but I
No.
think both people are going to have to move on this at the same time. He's going to have to step up and take the lead in planning, and she's going to have to relinquish that control because I could see where, from his perspective, he's like, oh, well, I don't feel confident I can do it like you. So you just go ahead and do it because I don't want to make you upset. And on the flip side, I can see from her end, like, well, any little, some help is better than no help. So I think they need to move at the same time instead of like one person. He can't fully wait for her to relinquish all control because, like she said, like the more I see from you, the easier it'll be for me. And then on the flip side, you know, it just has to happen at the same time.
Yeah, I think I put this in the next episode, but um I think yes, he has to like maybe force himself a little bit to get
Mhm,
outside of his normal rhythm. But I also feel, just like you're saying, he's not going to get it right every time. So she also should just prepare that this is
mhm,
going to be a longer journey. He's going to get it right maybe the first couple of times, and then he might slow it
mhm,
down and forget because he just isn't in the habit of doing it.
mhm,
So, um, yeah, to me, these are the most interesting couples, the ones who have the potential to last, because then you can really see how over time they
mhm.
have to give and take and be a little bit more proactive, be less proactive, so that the other person has the opportunity to get in there and shine a little bit. Like,
Mhm.
I'm interested to see what they'll say at the reunion. Hopefully, they're still together.
I know. But yeah, that's all I have on them.
Okay,
Same
so
here.
should we go to Madison and Allan?
Yes.
Okay. Alan only sees her on decision day, which is a decision that I support.
I agree.
I think their only discussion probably needs to be with the experts.
Mm,
And, you know, I think it's fair that Alan is kind of paying her dust. Like I said, I think it's her responsibility to reach out and apologize as often as possible and as often as is reasonable, but he doesn't even have to accept an apology. That's not on him, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's one of those things too where because her or David, but because we're talking about Madison right now, because she didn't just come clean on her own,
Hmm.
there's always this question of are all these apologies just because you got caught and now you're in the hot seat, or is it that you're genuinely sorry, or is it just because
Hmm.
you're sorry you got caught? And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah. And
I agree.
even if you are genuinely sorry in this situation, it's almost like nobody really cares. Like it doesn't matter how genuine you are. Nobody's going to be like, "Oh yeah, you're genuine." Like nobody is, unfortunately.
Yeah, when Pastor Cal opens up, this was so funny to me. He says, "Oh, it's very clear Madison has been involved with another husband." I don't know why that was just so funny to me, but then Pastor Cal, he apologizes. And it's not funny because of Alan. It's just the fact that this is married at first sight, and Pastor Cal is saying that how clear it is. And then he goes into apologizing. I can see the experts being highly irritated that this is the direction that this is turned into. Um,
Okay, can I just say this? And it is jumping to the next episode just a little bit, but I expected the experts to take it as seriously as they did. I think, especially for this being the first time it's happened, especially for it coming out
mhm.
the way it came out, I think they did their jobs. Where I feel like there's a disconnect is if we are giving David and Madison a slap on the wrist, as is
Mhm.
deserved, why are we giving them so much airtime? Like, what?
I agree. But see, that's the
Sorry.
difference. The experts, I think, are employees of whatever this production company is. And yeah.
Yeah. So it would just be nice if there was consistency in that messaging. Like, because okay, we're gonna give them the slap on the wrist, we're gonna do what we need to do, but then maybe we shouldn't be showing them on these cutesy dates. Like they should go. I think they're very equally yoked. Like they're I think they're at the same level of maturity. I think, they were clearly at the same level of like boundaries or the lack thereof, and they could grow together. They don't necessarily need to do that on screen.
Yeah. I think Lifetime is doing this to fill the rest of maybe the season. I don't even know.
Yeah. They're just making people hate them even more. Like, or dislike, because hate is a strong word. And someone put in our comments that our hate for Michelle, something about like our hate for Michelle is clouding our judgment. I was like, whoa, hate is a very, we don't even know Michelle. Like, relax. We don't even know this woman. But yeah. So Madison does her whole apologizing. Alan, tells her like, why dangle the carrot in front of me? Why go through the dates with me? Everything was valid. I think Madison just sat there and took it, which good because you don't, like if you're coming in apologetic, I don't want to hear you. Let me cook. And so, she says it sucks and I'm going to have to live with it, but I can't continue to beat a dead horse. Um, and Pastor Cal is like, he keeps asking these questions to give closure. And I just feel like Pastor Cal, everybody doesn't need closure. Like Alan seems to be closed out. Madison, I don't think is the party that necessarily deserves the closure in this. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree. And was this where he was like, "Oh, Madison is easy to get over," or something like that?
He got his shots in, and the experts, they're gonna let you get your shots in.
And
Yeah.
I feel like him saying like a Madison is easy to get over, I feel like that implies not that like her in and of herself is like a bad person, but like maybe what she did. Like it's easy to get over this because of the behavior and how she acts.
I thought he was being shady a little bit, which, considering the offense, I get. He's right. She said he's rightfully angry, but he seemed spiteful. And he was. I agree. He was spiteful. I think it's something that warrants some spite. Like, it just does. It does a little bit. Yeah, I think everything was warranted. He said, I want nothing to do with this woman. He won't even say her name. But yeah, that's it for them on decision day. And then Michelle and David, do you want to go to them? Okay.
Was it on this part where she talked about wanting to work on healing before pursuing things with David, or was
Oh,
that?
yes. Madison said, yeah, because they asked her what was next. And she said, right now I'm focused on healing myself. Yes.
Yeah, and I just thought that that was kind of interesting given what we see in episode 18.
Hmm.
How
But
quickly
okay,
things.
so episode 18, I have so many questions, particularly when it comes to MM, but like about the timeline of that. Like that, it's not very clear to me. So maybe that could apply to Madison, but also maybe not.
Yeah, and then I also think she said something real quick about how she was like, "Oh, I thought we could at least have a conversation face to face." And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Girl, you got to come into this a bit, being a bit more humble, in my opinion." I don't know.
Not even humble, because I thought she was humble. Well, this is just my opinion. I thought she came in humble to this meeting, emphasis on this meeting, um, but more like less naive. Like
You don't think that it was her being a bit entitled, feeling like, "Oh,
to
well,
be like, go
oh,
ahead.
like we needed to have a face-to-face conversation. I thought I would at least get that." Girl, you at least get nothing.
I think she got it with the experts, no? Like that to me is as face to face as it needs to get. Were you talking about in episode 18 when she was like, "Oh yeah, he didn't even look at me?"
Well, yeah, her so in her confessional scene in episode 17, she
Okay.
said, "Oh, like I thought that we could at least be face to face," and then she goes in and saying like, "Oh, he was being spiteful." And I'm like, what do you expect? He actually owes you nothing. He didn't even have to show up to decision day, in my opinion.
I was wondering that why did they do decision day for Alan and Madison and David, and maybe for the views, but I thought neither one of these needed to have. Okay, for Alan, I think it's good that it happened so that he didn't have to or didn't feel the need to sit down face to face with her one on one. I think this was the perfect environment for him to do that. But when it comes to David and Michelle, I thought I don't know. I thought they were beating a dead horse at that point. But again, it's what I would expect from them because this is their job and they have to take it seriously.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, so Michelle comes in first, if you're okay with moving forward to them. Okay. Michelle comes in first, they're talking about the same thing. She's like, she didn't know the extent, but it was probably more than she thought, which I think is what most people are saying, like, because we won't
Well,
get all the details.
and because of how long the lie went on, and it was because she kept digging, there is this sense of like, we'll probably never know the truth of what
Hmm.
all happened because it was just they both kept lying until it got to a point where they couldn't deny it anymore. So,
I can't deny it. Okay, so he apologizes. This part was so funny to me. He apologizes. She like rolls her eyes and rolling her neck. Um, and then during this meeting, David's like, I mentally checked out, which I mean, you didn't have to say it. We could see. I'm no body language expert, but yeah. Now, while I did feel like he should have comported himself differently. Like I probably wouldn't have been leaning back on the couch. It's like, hey, that's a bit much. Chill. But this part just really dragged on to me. Um, yeah. What did you think?
yeah, I mean, he said what he's been saying. At this point, believe what you want. But what I'll say, and I know people still like, oh, you're a Michelle fan. Actually, no, I'm not. But he because he kept lying when
Mm,
he said, "Oh, well, believe what you want," there were like four different conversations that he had with Michelle, and at each point, like leading up to this, he says, "Well, believe what you want. You're not gonna believe me anyway." So there is some validity to her being like, "Well, why would I believe you now?" Because he gave that same response every single
mm,
time she kept pushing until the very end. So him being frustrated, I get it because obviously who wants to keep having the same conversation over and over? But part of part of what one, you should just tell the truth anyways, but when you continuously lie, no one ever believes you. And so that's why it's kind of like, yeah, she's not going to believe what you have to say because you've given this same response when you lied to her the first four times. So, yeah.
yeah. And I think it's not so much for me like, oh, okay, I've said the same thing so many times. It's that if I already know this person's perspective of me, like
Mhm.
if I'm trying to get somebody to believe me, it's probably someone whose opinion I value and someone who I know values me. And so like maybe that's why this dragged on to me was because like these people don't care enough about each other for him
Mm-mm.
to care about her believing. Like if Madison was like, "Oh, I really want Alan to believe me." Yeah, of course, because Alan genuinely cared about you, But with Michelle, it's like, okay, I don't care if you believe me or not because you never saw it
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
you don't like me.
Now,
Yeah.
where I disagree is like with the experts, like you can't these people brought you into this process, so you can't just brush them off. And that's what I've always, felt. It's like,
And you still signed up for this process. And so, to
mhm,
a certain extent, by going on this show, you're answering to the spouse they assigned you to, the experts, as
mhm,
well as like the whole audience is watching this. And so,
mhm,
it's kind of like, this is what comes with, like, if this is in your personal life, you maybe only answer to your spouse, maybe your
mhm.
family, because people want to know, like, well, what happened?
But now
But
we all need answers because
now
you
we
on
all
a TV
need
show.
to know because you were married, and for half of the group of people, they'll be like, "Oh, well, she didn't like you anyways, so it's fine." But then the other group of people were like, "Yeah, but you were still married, and you could have waited the 8 weeks or the 6 weeks that were left, or just removed yourself from the process." So for
Amen.
me, that was why I wasn't understanding. Like I get him being frustrated with maybe Michelle because he knew, oh, you don't like me. But with the experts, you
You
were
owe them
still
something.
exactly.
Hmm.
Like you put on to be a part of this process, said you'd be loyal, you'd be faithful, and the way that this has turned out, you were none of those things. And so it's
Loyalty
like
was not
you
in the room.
it's like you do still I think you owe a bit of answering and respect to them because
Hmm.
y'all done changed up the whole process. Y'all done shook the
It's
table.
it's giving wife swap.
So it's
It's
like
not
I
even married at first sight anymore. Yeah.
yeah. So
I do think David in this scene tried to articulate himself and but didn't do it well.
mhm.
And this is the articulation that I wish would have come earlier when he was sitting there and just accepting whatever Michelle was saying. Like, this is the articulation that we needed sooner,
You should
which
have
is
checked out
she doesn't
after
care about
honey.
me. She treats
Yeah.
me in an awful manner, like weeks ago. And I understand with some people it takes a while to get your thoughts together, but it doesn't take that many weeks. And maybe if you weren't distracted, you could have done that. But yeah, it's like the articulation here was unfortunately too little, and it definitely was too late, but still valid. Just the timing I wish would have been pushed up to earlier because we all saw it
Well,
happening
and the honesty part of, hey, I'm just going to remove myself so
from
that it
this.
doesn't even give the appearance of something being
Hmm.
50. So,
Yeah.
in that conversation though, David says, because I think Pastor Kyle started to ask about, uh, well, no, actually, I want to talk about Dr. Pia. Was
Oh,
this?
her saying she lost respect for him.
Yeah, she was saying that, I feel like you're making a case for why it's her fault that you cheated. And
Yeah,
it's
I disagreed with that.
okay. And she was saying that, I feel like you should take full accountability for your actions. So you want to say why you disagree with that?
Um, I disagreed with you're making a case for why it's her fault. I think I think there was so much focus on getting Michelle throughout this season to see why David was chosen for her that there wasn't a lot of attention given to how Michelle is treating David. So, like early on, when Dr. Pia did the two visits, both of those visits were very Michelle focused. Now, I don't think the responsibility lies fully on the experts. Like I said, I think it's also David not articulating himself. But I just think there was not good attention given to David and how he was being like actually treated, which I think benefits Michelle in the end. And I'm glad because I think there were some breakthroughs that happened for her this season that I was happy to see, like seeing how she grew up affects maybe what she looks for in a partner. Like I think that's something that she received from this season that is super beneficial to her. But yeah, I think it was just him trying to articulate all the things that led to it. Again, too late, but I don't know that he was like, "Oh, it's her fault."
Mm,
Yeah. Now, do
yeah.
I think I don't think in this particular meeting was the time to do it. At this point, you've done your dirt and nobody wants to hear that right now.
I think, yeah, the wrong timing. It's two separate things. You should have articulated
Mhm.
how bad she was treating you earlier,
Yes.
but you having this conversation in this meeting, I could see why Dr. Pia gave that response because they're kind of as much to me, I see them as two separate issues. And I feel like because, and I can't say he was putting on, but because I'm not him, but the way he was talking was like, oh, I'm still interested in Michelle. I'm really trying to make this work.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like she could be a good partner. So it was kind of like, well, maybe David isn't as affected by, maybe he doesn't see her actions as deplorable as we see them, So it's kind of, so I
Because we're like, okay, he's doing a lot for his preference.
So, as the experts, I could see why they were so focused on trying to get her on board
Yes,
because he was acting as though he was just so okay with it.
it's
Meanwhile,
fine.
he was
Yes.
stewing and seeking attention elsewhere. So all the
elsewhere.
conversations you were having with Madison, why
Hmm.
didn't you have that with the experts?
Period. Because they've been active this season. This is one of the seasons where they weren't around. They were there.
And
So
so it's a little too late, and I could see why Dr. Pia is having that response because you did have the opportunity, but to say something, but it was almost as if Michelle is this perfect partner. We just need to get her on board with being okay with the fact that you live, in the basement situation and the lifestyle difference. He to me kind of sat back and let her drive a lot of the conversations. Meanwhile, he was telling Madison the real deal. So,
I so there were a couple of things with Michelle and the experts that I just wanted to highlight quickly. So when Michelle says, I treated you with respect, my mouth did drop because I was like, is respect
where?
in the room with us? Like, where, where's respect? And then I think there was a lot of the experts giving her credit for staying in the marriage. And people do this
Mm.
in the real world, like outside of this process too. And I hate to see it. Absolutely hate to see it. Oh, well, she stayed in the marriage and it's not just staying, it's how you stay. And so, as experts, I wish they would have commented a little bit more on that. Again, because David messed up so severely, the attention was on him. But yeah, I just didn't like that. Well, she respected you because she stayed in the marriage. No.
And I think because you have situations like Carla and Juan and others who will see their duty through the end and be like, okay, well,
Hmm.
it just didn't work. Or even if y'all don't get along, you still don't take it to the step of like stepping out on your
Yeah.
partner and then stepping out with someone else within the process.
Yes.
So, yeah, how you stay definitely matters. I just don't think they expected it would go to this extreme because to me it's extreme.
No, it is. I think to everybody it's extreme.
Like, okay, it didn't work. You couldn't wait. And you found somebody. Like if David had found one of maybe it clicked with the other women he claimed to be texting, no one would ever know anything. And Michelle probably wouldn't even care. This wouldn't even be a conversation.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I just didn't like the credit being given for that.
oh yeah.
Uh and so then we go to the warehouse with Juan, right?
Oh wait, real quick. So I think David said something about, oh, I just got to do what makes me happy. And this is another situation where I wish, David, you can have these thoughts, but the time and place matters. Why,
He needs media training, but for things, because you can't.
why in this session would you admit to that pursuing Madison is what is going to make you happy?
Well, they also asked, they were like, is part of your, because he said, I'm just going to do what makes me happy. He ended it there. And then Pastor Cal, I think, was like, is a part of your happiness also pursuing Madison? So
And this is
they led him
you.
to that answer. You want him to say no?
No, you just say, I don't know. I'm still figuring it
And
out. See, Madison is on that I don't know. I'm still figuring it out energy.
and
He,
now David wants to be honest.
you should have been honest. Now you're being too honest. I'm not saying lie, but just say you don't know because Madison is not vocally saying at this point, oh, I'm gonna pursue things with David. She's very much holding
She's
back
playing
from
the
what
game.
she's
But
playing.
okay, I feel like being too honest is consistent with the David we saw in like he's either being too honest, like there's no middle ground for him. And so I
Or
need
lying,
him to stabilize.
or
I need
just
more balance.
terrible lies. No in the
It's
middle.
either, yes, it's either I'm telling you everything and I don't know how to be a little demure, like I don't know how to hold back a little bit, or I'm not telling you anything. And instead of not just I'm not telling you anything, I'm gonna make up stories so that you don't know anything.
Terrible.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And then they asked, I think at some point they were like, well, do you care about Michelle? And he was like, honestly, no.
And you know what? That made me question. do I feel like David ever really even liked Michelle? And I'm gonna say I don't think so.
Hmm. I
I
think
don't
he did at the beginning.
I think at the wedding he liked what he saw. I don't think he ever got a chance to fall for her because she came out of the gate. Once she heard all the things and that she was
Hmm.
just like, absolutely no. I just think he wanted to work, you know, but I don't
Yeah.
know that he actually really fell for her. He really liked her like that. I just,
No, I mean, he's definitely didn't have an opportunity to fall for her. I
because
think
he
he was
wasn't spending
smitten
no
with
time
what
with
he
her.
saw. Yeah, because he didn't get a chance to know her. They weren't conversing. They weren't. So
No.
I think I think he liked what he saw. Like it was just married at first sight. So I think at first sight it was okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on this. I would give him. Well, I don't know what week that was, but like maybe right before that sit down dinner that they had, where she was like, "Is this your date outfit?" You remember that? Like
Mhm.
I would say maybe right before that point was when I would say, okay, he was actually giving it a chance. But yeah,
Yeah. And that was
okay.
about halfway through. So,
Okay, I
okay.
didn't remember I was like, was that their anniversary date? But I don't think that was their anniversary date.
Mhm. I can't
Okay.
remember. All right.
So the end. Oh, they showed Madison and David doing golf, and I was just like, I mean, okay, life goes on, but I didn't think they would show that to us. But then in episode 18, they showed us even more. They showed us like they showed more dates with David and Madison than Camille and Thomas.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, y'all really being messy.
And I'm not interested in seeing it. I'm
Not
not.
on. I wish them the best. Like I said, I think they're very much on the same level. I
I'm
just
I'm
don't
not
think it's
interested.
appropriate to show it
Mm-mm.
to this audience because we're here for Married at First Sight.
Mhm.
Okay. So the end of episode 17, I felt like the music was too loud. Like
Yeah.
I was struggling to hear the people. Alan spoke to David. You know,
Mhm.
but he declined the handshake. He was like, I don't want
Yeah.
to, which I
Don't
think
touch
is
me
fair.
either.
We're being
Yeah.
cordial, but we don't have to. I don't know you like that. I think he was respectful. He was respectful, and I think
Mhm.
David expected and was like, okay, cool. Like sometimes I like how it's not just men, but sometimes I like how men just
Mhm.
operate, and it's just simple. Like, okay, cool. All right, I'm
Mhm.
gonna say hi to you. No handshake, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Madison, when she came in, didn't say hi to Alan, which I mean, I get. He said he didn't want anything to do with her, so
The fact
probably
that
not
they
pushing it.
show up together, I mean, it's fine
Mhm.
that y'all are pursuing this, but y'all show
Mhm.
up, y'all are matching. It's just kind of like,
Where
I,
was this the scene where they were matching? She had on the red.
He had on the red and black. Yeah, they
Okay.
matching, and I'm just kind of like,
MAFS fan, which is a page I follow. Sometimes they give spoilers, but you don't have to see the spoilers. Said that someone sent them a message and said they were going to a party afterwards. Because I think people were talking about Madison's makeup being a little funny, which I don't
mm,
know. I don't know nothing about makeup, so I just thought that was the look she was going for. But
I think for
apparently
me,
that
the
talks.
biggest thing is y'all did. Okay, Michelle aside, why show up in the group setting? Okay, y'all couldn't have worn something different, shown up at different times. I'm not saying you need to be in hiding, but it's kind of like it just seems like poor taste.
You think the producers would allow them to show up separately? You don't think there was some
I,
production in
I'm
that?
I'm I'm sorry, no amount of production could convince me to go out like this on international television. Absolutely not. Production or not, there's no way. There's no way. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Pursue
I
your relationship, but why flaunt it like this?
So you think them showing up at the same time was them flaunting it?
I think if you're forced to show up, right? Because you are still filming, you signed a contract, fine.
Hmm.
But showing up in the way that they did, I personally wouldn't have did it.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I would go out of my way to act as though we don't know each other because you still maybe have this obligation to be in the same space, but to show up as the new couple on the block, Couldn't have
Maybe
been me.
I don't know. I didn't read that much into it, but I think it's fair everything that you're saying. Um, but yeah, so I was just mentioning that Madison didn't speak to Alan when she walked in, which
Mhm.
he then said, "Hi, Madison." So like that let it know, okay, that let her know possibly it's okay to speak. And she said, "Hi, Alan." Um, yeah. Now, was this when did Ikechi show up to this?
He did
Yes.
late. He showed up really late though. Mem was there. Yeah. Oh yeah. So Ikechi did show up.
Hmm.
Cause he gave Juan a hug. He seemed very the happiest he's been at one of these group events. And this is where Mem starts to open up about how she was trying so hard. She
Hmm.
put her best efforts in, and this triggers Ikechi into saying like, "Oh, this feels like a political speech." Um,
Yeah. If I
yeah.
were a mem, I think I would handle things the way that Alan handled it with um Madison. Like I think at this point, again, when these things were going on, I wish she would have spoken up. Now that the things have passed, you've gotten your last few digs in. I think she maybe needs a lesson in being unbothered.
That and I think a part of her wants to hold him accountable to the group, but it's unnecessary because they all saw what he did at the couples retreat. After the couples retreat, you
Mhm.
don't have to say anything else because
Yeah.
that was kind of the nail in the coffin, like, oh, okay, this guy is different. So she didn't
Yeah.
have to say anything else. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
said anything. I wouldn't have given him a hug. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. And then I think at the end of this, the men squash their beef. Well, squash, meaning Alan's like, whatever happens with y'all, but he's not gonna keep pressing it. And then David tries to shake his hand again. He's like, I still don't want to shake your hand. We ain't that far yet, but or maybe not even yet or ever. Like, I think it's done. I just appreciate how Alan has been moving.
I agree. M definitely needs to take note. From that conversation, though, I will say there's still a part of David I feel that's lacking accountability
Mhm.
because he says, like, oh, it wasn't intentional. Well, first, Juan asks, well, David, what have you been up to these days? Pursuing Madison? Wrong time, wrong place. Just say, oh, I've been working. I've been,
Hanging
playing,
out.
hanging out, shooting darts, spending time with my family, anything other than pursuing this man's ex-wife. Anyways, but then he goes on to say, like, oh, I just want you to know, like, it wasn't intentional. Thomas chimes in saying, well, it's important to hold you accountable. When did this start? He
Hmm.
just keeps saying it starts at the gym, starts at the gym. Well, these gym dates started on the honeymoon. I wanted to know which gym session, but let's move past it because it's over, it's done. Um, but I think so when Alan says like, but y'all were actively hanging out. And this is where I think some growth maybe still needs to happen with David. Just because you didn't wake up with a malicious plan to disrupt, you know, Alan's marriage and disrupt your situation, there is a part that is intentional. You spending the amount of time that you were with her and having the type of conversations that you were, that is intentional. That is how you get to know anyone. So I think there's still a bit of a lack of accountability on his part where he keeps saying, like, oh, but it wasn't on purpose, it wasn't intentional. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
every beautiful relationship starts with conversations and spending time and getting to know each other. And at this point, you have to know, even if you want to be successful in your situation with Madison, you cannot be chatting it up with some other woman once you and Madison start having issues. Like,
Yeah, like it was intentional in that you weren't intentional enough about, like we said, I think it was in the previous about setting boundaries. I think they also were very like delusional in the sense that, oh, if we don't say this is what it is, then it's not what it is.
mm,
And so it's like,
oh, that's not my boyfriend, but we together every day and
yeah,
we
yeah,
on the
yeah.
phone and we're
I think
Okay.
they very successfully deluded themselves into thinking, yeah, I think that's what it is.
And
Okay.
then, so part of this lack of accountability leads us to where Madison gets into a little spat at the end of episode 17 with Michelle,
Okay.
basically saying, "Oh, Michelle wasn't gonna that marriage wasn't gonna work out anyways."
So that takes us to episode 18, right? Because they
Mhm,
ended up in 17 and then
mhm.
started it. Okay, cool, cool. Because I, this is probably my least favorite scene of the whole season
I
for a
really do,
few,
babe.
I, for
Babe.
a few reasons. Because I feel like I think in the relationship between Madison and Michelle, one could argue, well, I think everybody would argue Michelle would be considered the victim, right? But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think either woman is a victim. And so this conversation was a little frustrating for me because it felt like them trying to convince the other that they were the victim and Madison coming in very hot, which either way that you flip this coin, you were wrong. Like, and when it comes to Michelle, you did her wrong because y'all were cool, even if you guys weren't friends, right? Because, like someone said in the comments, these people are all work friends. Even if you guys weren't friends, like
You're
woman
still
to
in the process.
woman.
We're still in the process together. You may think, oh, outside forces, he may cheat with someone else, but not
Mm-mm.
someone who's actively married going through the same process that I am right
It's just
now.
a huge violation of girl code. And so I understand Michelle being like,
That's a separate issue. Regardless of, it's kind of like how like I could talk about my family, but you can't. It's like even if she felt a way about her husband and was like, oh, he not doing this, he not doing that.
hmm.
So that never gives you as a friend or an associate way to come in and be like, oh, well, you didn't want it anyways.
Yeah,
No.
it just wasn't her place. And I was trying to figure out, like, why is Madison coming in this hot? And a part of me thinks, you were going to say something.
And why come in that hot with Alan sitting right there?
With
Because
anybody sitting right there.
anybody, but more so, even okay, regardless of Michelle, you still messed over Alan. Like I wanted to be like someone scream, but what about Alan? What about Alan?
It was very distasteful. And I think what it is that, you know, Michelle hasn't had as much attention like with how she treated David, right? Not many people have been like, "Oh, bad Michelle." And I think Madison probably felt like, "Oh, well, she deserves some smoke too." And I'm gonna give it to her. No, you can't give anybody
You're
smoke. Your house is on fire right now. Like, don't. It was
not,
just so
and this is
odd.
where I was with Michelle. Why are you speaking on my marriage, my feelings, how I
Yeah.
treated him? Madison, you were way out of line. And the part that just made it even more cringe, the men are sitting back like,
Yes, and I understand you want to be maybe David's defense attorney, or maybe you just feel like there's been a lot of fire on you and you want to spread that out. But David is a grown man. David could have left. David should have left. He should have never endured what Michelle was giving out. And so it's like it's just not your place as probably one of the wrongest parties in this whole everything, like to come hot at anybody. This is where, so remember you said in the last episode, I felt like she should have been more humble. I think this is where
mm-hmm.
humility was completely needed. Yeah,
And
just
to
leave
me,
it. Like, just leave it. Like, stop.
it, whatever leeway you may have made with some accountability or whatever, it starts to diminish that because no, girl, you're very much on one and think that you are justified for pursuing things. So to me, this that accountability thing pops back
Ex-
up where I still don't think that it's quite clicking. And why would you want to portray yourself on international television as
in that
a
way.
woman who essentially can't be trusted?
Yes. And even if it is true, right? Yes, we all know
Yeah,
Michelle
we have
didn't care about David. You're not the one to say it.
wrong,
Like, and so
wrong message.
I think we're seeing like it's gonna take some time to get to it. Like it takes time to get to certain maturity levels, and I really hope that watching this back, these people are learning. I hope they're taking notes like, okay, yeah, I should not have done that, should not have said that, should have kept quiet here. Like,
I
because
think
no, this is not how it should
something
have gone.
may have happened to where maybe her and David had a conversation and it kind of maybe gave her the confidence or gassed her up a bit to go into this, be like, you know what, I'm not gonna be ashamed. We're gonna be together. If she comes at me,
Hmm.
I'm coming at her. Like I'm just gonna own it because me being humble and apologizing, I'm not making headway. So let me just stand in it. I don't know. Cause there seems to have been a shift. I don't know if it was the alcohol. I'm not sure.
That's okay. I put this like, was it the alcohol a little bit? But I don't even want to again, I think that's removing some accountability for her. And so I'm like, no, whether it was alcohol or not, she comported herself in a way that she should not have.
And then they leave, her and David leave. They go down the stairs. They're kissing and consoling each other.
Hmm.
Just, oh,
Okay. So in episode 18, we're seeing more airtime with Madison and David. I don't have much to say about their time together, just that there was more airtime with them.
yeah.
Let's go to Juan and Carla.
Let's talk about
Oh,
Madison and her dad.
that was like later in the episode, but
Oh, okay.
okay.
You want
No, no,
to?
no, we can. Because
All I
I
was,
was like, okay, sir. Now, I remember there were comments in the beginning of the season because he was asking Alan, and I was saying, okay, he's being an overprotective dad. Like I've seen the type before, and people were like, oh, that was so inappropriate. So I'm like, really waiting to see what he's gonna say here.
with that accountability, Dad.
And he was like, you know, Madison, I think you're being too hard on yourself. And, you know, to her credit, she was like, no, I should have been more honest. Like she keeps going back and forth, but she was like, no, I should have been more honest. I shouldn't have, you know, um, led him on in that way. But yeah, Dad, if you're gonna be hard on this woman's husband in the beginning and be like, oh, get testing when your daughter cheats, you
Come with
need
that.
to hold her feet to the fire. Period.
Yeah. You could tell he was taken aback though, when
Yes.
when she,
You didn't see
he
that coming.
was like, oh, well, I've connected with another husband within the process. He says, oh boy.
And he was like, wait, 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 how did David come up? When did this David come up? And
Who's this?
then and then, you know, it starts to make sense because her dad goes, I mean, you can't control that. See, this where she get it from. See, that's why. That's why right
I'm
there.
sorry, this whole you can't help who you love. You can. You
Mm.
can. You can. You can. I'm sorry. She got the right group of people around her because between her dad and the friends that she was talking to after this whole thing went down,
Yeah, like she seems to be the one holding her accountable the most, which is troubling because she goes between I'm accountable and I'm not. And so, yeah, you are accountable. It is your fault, you know, and that's okay. It be our fault sometimes. Like there's nothing wrong with admitting fault, right? It
all I
was
can
your fault.
all I can say is don't tell me because you will be judged. According,
We listen and we be judging.
girl, you did what?
Right, right. Oh boy. Okay. All right, let's get past Juan and Carla and
Okay.
Camille and Thomas so we can talk about a mem.
Okay. See,
Okay.
one card.
So Juan and Carla, Juan was like, well, would it be okay to be friends still? And Carla's like, what do you mean by friendship? She's like, who is friendship? Where is she from? I don't know her.
I,
And they're
I
not
agree.
compatible. And I think Juan described, oh yeah, like we could catch up here and there, maybe a few months or something like that. And I think that's a nice thing to say, but very unnecessary because yes, if you mean when we see each other, we should be cordial, cool. But there should be no intentional, oh, let's grab coffee. No.
Mm-mm.
Why?
And Carla has good energy. Yeah, don't be trying
And
to
good
pop back.
instincts.
And to try to use her for what you can. No, move on. Go find your wife.
Yeah. And I don't think in most cases, I would argue for me in all cases, but definitely in most cases, your ex is not your friend. Like, yeah, you can be cordial, but they shouldn't be someone you catch up with once a quarter.
If you have children, that should be the extent of, hey, we're catching up about the kids and
Hmm,
maintaining a sense
hmm.
of family, but that's it.
Yeah.
And y'all don't have kids, so.
Okay.
um,
Camila Thomas.
Yeah, so they'll be moving into Thomas's place. He's made accommodations for her to make her comfortable. She's going to get his parking space, get his main closet.
Yes, so sweet.
He's doing what I felt like I knew he was going to do. Still got those earrings in. Camille, girl, you're gonna be good. I really hope they're still together. So,
Yeah, and I think it's just like both of them are gonna have to be intentional about him leading.
but
And so
she says she feels like her heart is in good hands.
yes, and
I
I
love
think it
that.
is too. Oh, please still be together, y'all, because we need something.
Now, Thomas, we don't want to hear about nothing crazy. Come
Right.
on.
No, he seems in a place in life where he's just ready to be settled. Remember when all the drama was going down on the retreat,
This
and he
was
was like, "Yeah, I just tried to stay out of it." He was nowhere to be found when drama. The most we saw of him was in that bed with Camille, and so
interesting.
I I think if anything goes awry, it's just that these are two people who don't really know each other and haven't had time to really stew in each
Mhm.
other's personalities, but I hope they can work through whatever it is.
Oh yeah, the long haul. 8 weeks is not a long time at
8 weeks
all.
with cameras is not cameras
Mhm.
and castmates. That's
Mhm.
nothing. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
All
so
right. So,
want to do Michelle and Carla? They go out. I don't
oh
have much.
wait, Camille put on the lingerie for Thomas.
Oh,
Okay.
finally, yeah.
It's been 8 weeks. All right. Yeah. So Carla and Michelle, I'm gonna get your thoughts about these conversations.
It's an interesting pairing, but I will say I think, at least from the tidbits I heard on the after party, Carla, I don't think had the impression of Michelle and how she was treating David and acting fully when things were being filmed. Because as intuitive as Carla is, I'm like, oh, as close as they are, I don't know if it's because they're are divorcees now and they're like, oh, we're kind of in this together as we're wrapping this thing up. Um, but I think it's later when obviously everyone's watching this back where Carla's able to see how Michelle really showed her behind the first half of the season. So,
Yeah. But either way, they have this conversation about, well, can we even say we were married? We weren't really married. And I thought that was interesting.
yeah,
Not necessarily on Carla's behalf, but just like, yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I thought it was
Mich-
interesting.
Michelle, you've created a whole stink about being cheated on. Yes, you were married. So, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? Hmm.
When it's convenient. But
Mhm.
Carla asked how David's infidelity might affect her in other relationships, which I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, she didn't
Like,
like him anyway, so I think she'll be fine. If anything, she should have asked her about the whole like lifestyle thing and
mhm.
money and
Yeah,
yeah.
I honestly, I think Michelle got what she needed out of the beginning parts of this season. Like you
Really?
really could see that breakthrough of I didn't even consider how, like my background of poverty would step in. So I really hope she explores that. And I think that'll lead her to her right person. Like I know at the
Hmm.
end of the episode she was like, "Oh, everybody has somebody and then it's just me." And I sincerely hope that she doesn't. she's not taking that as a failure on her part because I don't see it as
Mhm.
that. I think, you see how you acted on this season, you grow from it, you become better, and there's somebody out there for her. She's not a bad looking woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I wish her the best.
Yeah, I do wish her the best, but I don't know if I can say that she's
Gonna grow.
grown in the
Yeah.
leadership just because so much focus was with this whole like cheating thing, I don't
So you don't
know.
think she'll be able to do the self-reflection because of how it all played down, like played out?
Yeah, I could because up until this point, I've never heard her take accountability for being as mean as she was to him. I
Okay.
didn't hear it. I
Yeah.
I just heard, "Oh, well, I want what I want." Not that, "You know what, David, I'm sorry for being as mean to you as I was or as closed
Mhm.
off." She would always acknowledge like, "Man, I'm doing it again. I'm being mean again." But she would never apologize and be like,
To the person she was mean to.
"Right."
I see it. I
So
want to
so
be hopeful,
mm, okay,
but
well, that'll be one of us.
okay. So let's talk about them because I am stressed. Okay. So
Oh.
Brandon, which obviously all this meeting up with Brandon no, y'all have been talking. So I think a lot of this was heavily produced.
So on this episode, I feel like I saw or heard something about this being 12 days after decision day. Did you catch that?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
yeah. At the
to talk
bottom.
line, they said 12 days after decision day. So we'll round up to 2 weeks. Just so just so we're clear on how long it's been since decision day. And we're seeing all this play out with her and Brandon, who's a
Okay.
childhood friend who she hasn't had contact with, who's getting divorced right now, was married for 10 years, and has two children, 8
Rushed into
11.
the 10-year marriage. Like they were married 6 months after meeting.
And he has two kids, they're older, 8 and 11. And he says he's happy to have a second opportunity with him. And he says he is ready to be back married again. But I don't know how because you're still married.
You know, some people need partnership. Like they just can't.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, you get used to having that person. Yeah, yeah.
But at this age, it would be wise to take a beat. You don't even have a place to stay for
Yeah, he
your
says he's
own
on his sister's couch.
house.
Why?
So when your kids have visitation with you, hopefully you are a father who is active in his kids' lives. But when they come to spend the night, are they also sleeping on your sister's couch? Like, you need to get yourself together before you consider jumping into another relationship. Are you now about to depend on the person you're with to provide a home for your kids to come and spend the night? What is going on there?
And things haven't even been finalized in terms of custody, alimony, like
Hmm.
what will your new financial landscape look like now that
Yes.
your family is, broken up? So there's a lot in the air.
And the age group, the age of the kids. Like, you don't think there's enough transition happening in their lives? Like, you say you're a family man. How are you prioritizing? Like, and maybe these things have been shared with a men, but we need answers because you are very comfortable in front of the camera. So, if you're going to be comfortable in front of the camera, let us know. If you're comfortable enough to let us know you're on your sister's couch, let us know the plan, Mr. Family Man, for your kids. Like, do you really think on top of their parents separating, on top of their dad not being stable, like with his own home, on top of now they're going back and forth between parents, do you think this is the time to introduce a stepmother?
And have you even introduced Emim to see how they feel about her? I'm not, I've never been in a situation where, I have a kid and need to introduce him to another person, but
Mhm.
from what I've heard, that's important. to see what that vibe is like, especially the age that there are, especially the 11-year-old. You know, how do they get along? I don't know. Like, there's just so many questions.
Yes. So,
Ah,
so that was the first sighting of them. Do you want to talk? I mean, Alan mentioned that he's back dating, and he talked about. I'm like, what type of sites are you on? What apps? Because it doesn't sound like a regular hinge. Sounds like you have specific desires that you have sought out on specific apps. So,
Alan, do your thing. It's none of our business, and keep it
yeah.
that way. I don't want to hear it.
And so back to MM. So the girls are meeting up at MM's apartment. And so it's Camille, Carla, and of course MM because it's her
Mhm,
place. Camille talks about how marriage is going. She said Thomas's dad jokes are becoming funny to her,
mhm.
and she's feeling good about their marriage. All right, then MM starts talking about her new love. Oh yeah, he's gonna actually stop by tonight. He's so great. He's so this man who's a firefighter, real estate broker, AAU coach. He has a lot of jobs. He wears a lot of hats, but he's on his
Got two
sister's couch.
kids. Mhm.
Yes, like, okay. Anyway, so she talks about how she can bring things up and he's not defensive about things, which I think you do have to wait and see how long that lasts. But I think because Ikechi was defensive so early on, she's like, oh, that's a good sign.
Good.
No, it's still
Yeah.
very new. It's still very
Yeah, and
new
there's been no time even for her to reflect fully, I think, in 2 weeks and heal a bit. You
about
know,
what she allowed herself to accept because Ikechi was awful, but again, she could have walked away and should have walked away and had several opportunities. This wasn't like they asked her, do you want this marriage to continue multiple times throughout this process? And she would always say yes. So it's like, girl, relax. All right. So Brandon comes in and apparently a man, like his life was so dark. And now Mem is the one who has brought light to his life. And so Carla asks, so was your light like, did you have no light in your life before Mem? And he's like, no, none. And you could tell from her facial expression, like that is an unacceptable answer. And I agree with her. That is an unacceptable answer. Um,
and part of me is like, "Okay, dark in what way?" I don't know. Part of me is like, I don't wanna know all your business, but if you're gonna come on here doing all this, we wanna know more. I don't know. E
it's even red flags. Uh, e- Especially because he's like, the way he's acting is as if he can't live without her now. And because he says something about, yeah, you saw how many times I was calling you today. I just had to be around you. Like we're not teenagers where you
How do you
think
have
that's what love
time? Are you calling your
with
kids
three
like that?
jobs.
Are you calling your kids like that?
It was crazy. So MM left with her man, and Carla was like, mm-mm. Red flag, red flag, red flag.
Mm-mm.
Because I need him to offer something. Like, I don't want to be the only light in someone's life. That's too heavy of a responsibility. Like, so you're only bringing darkness, and depending on my light to cast out your darkness, what are you? I want you to bring light to me too, like what? And I need you
And
to be light for yourself. Like, forget me. Be light for yourself so that I don't have to carry the burden of always being light for you.
And something in Mem said where she was like, "Oh, I don't have to be small with him. I can be big." Obviously we've definitely gotten, boss energy from Emem.
For
I don't
sure.
know. Part of me just feels like I hope she's not going to be used. Like this guy has been in a dark place. He's coming out of a 10.5 year marriage with 2 kids. I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly cautious, but I would just be very leery in, okay, is he looking to plug and play you in as a stepmom? Like, what is his financial situation? His divorce isn't settled. I don't know. And Mim has so much going for herself
Yes.
where I'm thinking he may be a great guy and have his stuff all set, but you haven't even had time to verify. I feel like he may be cool with you being big and being a boss because he's going to come up as a result of it if he quickly marries you.
Yeah.
Ah,
And I think she's not to say this wasn't not to say this isn't valid, right? What is going on with them. But he she keeps comparing her divorce to his divorce. And it's like your
Right.
divorce is not that the one of these things is not like the other. You're you were married for 8 weeks.
The way, I'm jumping ahead, but catching him have a little moment. I want you to have a moment with that soon to be ex-wife. I'm sorry. Because there's kids there, what he's saying is very vague. Okay, maybe he's told you more off camera, but Mim, you need to go have a coffee date with her to hear her side because I need to understand why you are separating yourself from your family at such a pivotal age in your children's lives. They're about to be preteens, and now you're no longer in the home. We need answers,
We
and
need
I feel like you need
answers.
to go talk to the wife. Maybe, I mean, even if she is spiteful, who cares? Just go hear what she has to say.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So he proposes for the first time without a ring on a whim after meeting cousin Raphael, which cousin Raphael has been very
He's
consistent
he's
and
tired.
asking.
He's tired.
He's tired. He's like, I don't want to be doing this every 8 weeks.
how can you expect him to be effective at his job when you got him working back to back?
Got
Shit.
working overtime, overtime. But
He
I appreciate where he's like, I know y'all know each other, but you still have to be cautious. Like, I rock with him. I know him too, but you still have to be cautious. Like, he's been married for 10 years
mm,
and now he said now he back dating. I'm like, where did you already dating and you just separated from your family? Like,
and how long have you been separated? When did you decide you wanted to get a divorce? Why is this divorce? Maybe it was 2 years ago. Why is this divorce taking so long? Could you change your mind and decide, hey, I want to go back to my family? This divorce is too expensive. There's so
you're
many
right.
things.
We need to talk to the wife and find out why she's divorcing him as well. We need to know. And we need
Oh.
to trust what she says. Okay. So they meet up for Thomas's birthday, for
And
hubby's birthday.
Mim says yes, by the way, at
Oh
this
yeah.
first
She says
proposal.
yes. And then later on they go and look at rings and she picks out a 4 carat ring, which I don't know that someone who does not have his own place to live, who's a firefighter. I don't know. I don't know that he makes enough for a 4 carat ring, but the ring she picked out isn't the ring people have seen her with. So it doesn't seem like she ends up with the 4 carat one.
Yeah, and from what I heard, most jewelry stores they do the faux ones, and you order yours, and
Mm-hmm,
it comes to
mm-hmm.
you. So they don't even be keeping a lot of like the big diamond
The
stores. They
big
don't
ones like
keep
that.
in house like that.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So now we go to hubby's birthday. And so Camille's throwing a get together for him, and everybody comes, everybody's there. And Mem walks in with her ring. Madison peeped that ring so fast. Like she didn't even say hello when she saw the ring. She was like, "You have a big ring on." Like,
you can see four
dang,
carats from across the room.
from across the yeah, you can see
And
that from across the
and
street.
Mim is like,
And she wasn't hot. She wasn't shy about it. You know how you be trying to tuck. I could never, I do not like drawing attention to myself. If anybody got me a 4 carat ring, I'd probably be like this the whole time, uncomfortable.
I will say though, I feel like if you're, a bigger person, it makes sense to have a bigger ring. But like if you're like petite and small, you have like small hands and stuff, like
Yeah.
it just looks
I'm a
like
big person. People tell me online all the time that, they think I'm very tall, and I am. Keep believing that. Okay.
okay.
So,
Okay.
all right. Do you want to talk about the reactions to MM's?
I mean, everyone's like, what is going on here? We're still
Well,
filming.
David was like, I mean, if she's happy, I think that's great. Because
I
like
mean,
me and Madison, David, get off my screen.
if he could propose to Madison, he would, but she's not gonna say yes as of right now. But
At
I
this
think,
point, no, no,
yeah,
no,
I
no.
think he would. I think he would.
I don't think
Yeah.
he would right now. Maybe at the reunion. Ooh,
I could see him trying to secure it. I see her holding back more.
being more hesitant. Yeah.
Mhm. Right?
Okay. I don't have many notes after that. Camille made that speech about Thomas. He was tearing up those wings, child. He was not trying to, he was, and she's over here like, yeah, because hubby, he's so great and he deserves, like, let that man eat his lemon pepper 10 piece. Anyway,
Mm.
so yeah. And then I think in the diary, in the confessional, Madison's like, I mean, we're not getting the support because was it Alan or Juan that said, "Oh, this group is always supportive at different points." And I'm sure the producers asked the question because it sounded like she was responding to something, but she said, "I don't feel like we're getting support from the group, and that's okay." I'm like, "Okay, at least you know." Because if
Yeah.
you were expecting support
You
from the group,
you shouldn't even be filming anymore. And just to take one step back,
hmm
we skipped their ice cream date where they confirmed that they've been intimate.
oh, okay.
David,
Oh
they
yeah,
yeah.
was it dessert or something that they? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't skip the ice cream day. It was on purpose. Because there just wasn't, no, there wasn't, but they had a lot of dates. They had like 3 dates this episode, two or
Mm.
three.
He set up something for her birthday, got the tattoo covered, the
Yeah.
ice cream.
And I want them to live their life. So don't get me wrong. Like I'm not hating on them. I want them to. I just, you know,
I don't want to
if
see it.
yeah, I don't think it's appropriate to show it on this platform, but they should go and enjoy their lives, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Mm.
Um,
And
so
then
David has to leave for work, and then I
the
think like at that point Michelle's like, "Oh, bye losers" or something like that, which
Mm.
I
Mm.
mean, I don't have much to say about like
Yeah.
everybody deserves to get their little petty jabs in at some point. So I'm not even necessarily
I
mad at her for it. It is what
I
it
feel
is.
like
I
David apologized again
He
at the end
did.
of
Yeah,
the
so after she made that comment, he was
Yeah.
like,
I think
"Okay," cuz everybody heard it.
I think he should stop apologizing. He should just stop talking to her, period, I
Yeah.
think.
I think it was nice of him to try to initiate that, but because she was very clearly still in her feelings. And
And
so I think he was just trying to smooth things over because it's like it was a little awkward,
and I
but
think because of how things went at the
on decision
previous
day.
together
Hmm
and decision day, her
hmm
little tip with Madison didn't help either. So I could
hmm
see him trying to smooth things like,
Smooth things
okay,
over.
we're gonna
But
have to
she
see.
doesn't want things to be smoothed. She
Yeah,
just,
just stop.
she wants to be. How did you feel about Michelle saying, oh, them showing up, it just feels like they won. She said that episode 17 or the beginning
Yeah,
of
well,
episode 18.
I can see why she'd say that because I think Michelle, all she's wanted to do is like clean up her image
Win.
and show how she's
Yeah.
been the victim. But I also, so I'm like, girl, you don't care, whatever. We know the real reason why you
I
wanted
think
to.
she cares about winning, and that's why she said that.
Right.
But
But I will say them continuing to show up now as a couple, they're being
mhm,
filmed, they're having all these dates. I agree. It shouldn't be that you have bad behavior essentially and then you get rewarded by now showcasing your love story on the
mm-mm,
show.
mhm.
It's yeah, so I agree with her in that. Yeah, it's fine that y'all are going to be together, but we don't need to see all that. No.
And then another unnecessary talk that was initiated was so Ikechi comes, Brandon's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't understand. I'm Amem's fiance." He's like, "Okay, congratulations." He petty. Okay, congratulations. Cool. Who cares?
So I wanted to ask you something that I kept saying throughout the season is Mem didn't care who I was. She really wasn't trying to get to know me. She just wanted a husband. She just wanted
Mhm.
anybody.
Mm,
Now seeing this new guy get inserted so quickly,
mhm,
assuming it's 12 days as they have said,
mm,
now we see him get plugged in as the fiance. Do
mhm.
you think that there was some validity to Mem just maybe having this bit of desperation just to be married, period, and will what anybody would do.
Mm. I don't know that I would say, oh, anybody would do. I think
Mm,
there are definitely reasons why Brandon, shallow reasons, like how good she thinks he looks physically. And I think the fact that they know each other also lends itself. So I wouldn't say anybody, but I think I agreed with him when he was like, it didn't matter who they brought down the aisle, she was going to try to make it work. I think she herself said that. Like, I came here
Mhm.
for a marriage. That's what I was trying to do. And so I do think she still has that mindset. Like, I'm here for a marriage and I'll do what I need to do. I don't think it has to be anybody, but I don't think the bar is super high,
Yeah. It is for me, it's
unfortunately.
disappointing.
Yeah.
And I hope her and this guy, if they Brandon, if they decide to be together, I hope it goes well. But it is disappointing for me because um I just don't like how I don't like that it's showcased. Maybe this is just me projecting, like I'm naturally a private person.
He's too
And
showy, and she's too showy
yeah,
with him.
yeah, it's yeah, there's not enough foundation there.
I'm disappointed. I think sometimes with these shows, like I think about Ashley from Love is Blind and now MM, I think we as viewers see their value more than they see their own. And I think that hurts me because I know there aren't a lot of options, but you're not going to get the best of the options if you keep settling.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you guys let us know what you thought about this. We it's going to be a while before we do Love is Blind
Yeah.
cuz life, but at some point we'll come back probably after the weddings and record the Love is Blind stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah. All right. We'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.
Bye.